Everyone talks about Steve Jobs like he was a product genius. And yeah, he was. But if you actually study how Apple was built, you realize something way more important. Steve Jobs wasn't obsessed with products. He was obsessed with people. In fact, he once said hiring was the most important thing he did as a CEO. And here's what's crazy. He believed one wrong hire could destroy years of progress, not slow it down, destroy it. So in this video, I want to break down how Steve Jobs actually thought about hiring, why his A-player only philosophy worked, the mistakes most founders still make today, and how to apply this without running Apple. Stick around because halfway through, I'll show you the one thing Jobs looked for that doesn't show up on any resume. And it's the difference between someone who builds your company and someone who quietly kills it. Steve Jobs didn't believe companies were built by strategy. He believed they were built by talent density, meaning how many exceptional people you can stack in one place. Because here's what he understood early. A players don't just perform better, they change the standard. They push everyone around them higher. They solve problems and they require less management, while most importantly, they attract other players. But the opposite is also true. One B player doesn't stay isolated. They lower expectation, they slow decisions, and they tolerate mediocrity. And over time, that spreads. That's why Jobs was ruthless about hiring. Not because he was intense, but because he knew you don't get the company you want, you get the company your hiring standards allow. So if Jobs cared this much about talent, what exactly was he looking for? Because it wasn't just skills. And this is where most founders get it wrong. Most founders think A players are just highly skilled. That's not how Jobs saw it. He was looking for something deeper. People who cared, not casually interested, obsessed. He wanted people who loved the product, who argued about the details, who took things personally. Because skills without care creates compliance, but care with skill creates ownership. And that's why he didn't rely heavily on resumes. He spent time talking to people, walking with them, breaking formal interviews. He wanted to understand how they think, not how they represent themselves. Because resumes show you what someone has done, but conversations show you who they are. And here's the part most founders miss. Jobs didn't want people to follow instructions. He wanted people who could replace his thinking, people who would challenge him, push back, and make the company better. But if that's true, why do most hiring processes today filter those exact people out? Well, here's the uncomfortable truth. Most hiring systems are built to find safe candidates, not great ones. Think about it. Most job descriptions reward predictability, years of experience, good communication, clean resumes. But real A players? Well, they don't always look clean on paper. They challenge things. They ask hard questions. They don't follow scripts. And that makes founders uncomfortable. So what happens next? They hire the quote-unquote safe candidate, the one who interviews well, says the right things, feels easy, and then they wonder why nothing improves. This is exactly what Jobs avoided. He didn't hire for comfort, he hired for impact. And that's why he took his time. Sometimes months, and sometimes even longer. Because he knew a rushed hire isn't a small mistake, it's a compounding one. Now, at this point, you understand what an A player actually looks like. But here's where most founders get stuck. Finding them is hard because A players aren't sitting around applying to jobs all day. They're already working. They're being productive. They're already valuable. And that's exactly why companies never reach them. And that's where we come in. At Remote Latinos, we build systems to find, test, and place top-tier talent across Latin America. People who already operate with ownership, not hand-holding. So instead of guessing, you get proven performers. And if you want help with that, go to remotelatinos.com or comment hire so we can help you find your next Rockstar Remote team member. Let's keep going. Here's where a lot of people misunderstand Steve Jobs. They think his success came from being demanding or intense or hardworking. But that's not the real takeaway. The real takeaway is this. Once he found great people, he got out of their way. He didn't micromanage A players because he didn't hire them to follow instructions. He hired them to think. He trusted them to execute, to make decisions, to own outcomes. And this is where most founders fail. They say they want great people, but then they over-control, over-manage, and overcorrect. And then they turn A players into average performers. Jobs understood something simple. If you have to constantly manage someone, you didn't hire the right person. So how do you actually use this without running Apple or spending a year hiring one person? Well, it comes down to a few simple shifts. First, hire for output, not background. Stop asking what they've worked, start asking what they've done. Second, test before you trust. Give a real-world task, see how they think. And third, filter for ownership. Do they take responsibility or wait for direction? Oh, lastly, so I don't forget, you must build structure, not supervision. Clear KPI, clear expectations, clear outcomes. Because when you combine high standards with real testing and with strong structure, you create what Jobs was after all along. A team that doesn't need to be pushed because it pulls the business forward. And if there's one thing to take from this, it's this. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple by chasing talent. He built a system that has allowed the right people in. And once you see hiring this way, you stop guessing and you start building with intention. If you want more breakdowns like this, real hiring strategies, real systems, and what actually works when you're building a team, make sure you're subscribed because every video on this channel is designed to help you to do one thing: build a team that grows your business without you carrying it. And if you're serious about that, well, you're gonna wanna stick around for the next video that I talk about onboarding your A players and showing you how we've onboarded over 20 team members in the last 12 months for our 7-figure business. Thank you, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Oos.